Hello, I'm tattoo artist Pat Fish, and I've been specializing in Celtic art tattoos for over 30 years. This video is designed to help you, the prospective client, decide how to personalize a chosen Celtic knot so that your tattoo will be unique and custom for you. A design can be accurate to traditional source material and then adapted for a beautiful tattoo customized to your own aesthetics. First, let's establish some terminology. Of paramount importance in Celtic knot tattoos are the lines. Crisp, clean lines define the pattern and provide the basic structure of the knot. Lines are always done in black ink for stability and longevity. Pairs of parallel lines define the weave or laces of the knotwork, and these are usually accentuated with what I like to call whip shading or wickering. This guides the eye to see the way the pattern weaves in and out and gives the impression of depth and dimensionality. Between the interwoven laces is the negative space fill or background. Finally, I often add a double thick line around the outside edge of the whole design. This gives it a sharp look and makes the interior lines look more complex and detailed. It is a good finishing touch. Let's look at the ways that these components can be rendered in a tattoo and how different combinations can create nearly endless variation even within the same knot pattern. The knot we're looking at here is rendered in what you might call a classic way. It has black negative space fill and gray whip shading in the laces. Notice how the dark background brings the laces forward visually and enhances the dimensionality of the weave. Before we talk about color, here is one unusual way to render a knot that I'd like to address. Here's our sample knot rendered in a black graphic style. This is reminiscent of the tribal tattoos that were so popular in the 1990s. While it is a viable choice in some cases, it does not present the same level of detail and complexity that make Celtic knot tattoos so compelling to me. The two primary places that color can be used in a Celtic knot tattoo are in the negative spaces, as seen on the left, and in the laces themselves, as seen on the right. My personal favorite place for color is in the negative space. Like a black background, the colored negative space lifts the knot's weave visually and makes it look more dimensional. You get the best of both, a solid color and the shading accentuating the weave of the laces. Sometimes, it could be appropriate to use a color for the whip shading. The result is interesting, but a bit less dynamic than the gray shading. Another option for filling the negative space is pointillist dots. Black dots tend to give a textured stone look to the tattoo and add another level of interest. They can also be used in conjunction with a color fill, or the dots themselves can be in color. As I mentioned earlier, shading is used to accentuate the interlace of the knot. If you choose to get a Celtic knot tattoo at too small a size, there may not be room between the parallel lines for this shading, and I might suggest the addition of white or a light bright color instead to keep the parallel lines from blurring together and closing up over the life of the tattoo. At most sizes, shading can be combined with color, if desired, for a different effect. This can be quite beautiful, but can also reduce the impression of crisp detail that shading alone provides. The bigger the tattoo, the more options there are. Now let's take a look at some combinations. This is an example of selective coloring for emphasis. Parts of the design can be colored differently to call attention to a specific feature or shape, as in these examples. Choosing color options can be fun and exciting, but don't get carried away. You want your Celtic knot tattoo to look elegant and timeless, not like a kid's lemonade stand sign. Also, remember that different ink colors fade at different rates, so limiting the color palette can keep a tattoo looking good for longer without a touch-up. Now that you've seen the different options for rendering, let's take a look at some finished tattoo examples and explain them using the terms I've outlined. First is the Faithful Heart design. On the far left, it's shown with red fill in the negative space and gray shaded laces. Moving right, the next example is rendered with only black lines and shading for a more open, lacier look. The next one has the heart-shaped part of the lace selectively colored for emphasis. Finally, on the far right is an example that is flirting with the carried away category, with symbolic colors that require explanation and do not necessarily enhance the tattoo visually. This example is a Celtic Tree of Life design drawn by the famous Welsh artist Jen Delyth. The first example on the far left has the upper negative spaces colored blue to represent sky, and the lower spaces colored green to represent earth. The trunk has been shaded using dots. The next one is simply black lines and gray shading. On the far right is an example of the black graphic tribal style mentioned earlier. To its left is the same style but with color filling the solid areas. This is only possible at large sizes or with simple patterns, as there needs to be room for a black outline around the color, as well as small gaps where the segments meet to indicate the over-under weave of the knot. You can see when comparing these that the two on the left have a more dynamic dimensional feel, while the two on the right appear more flat and static. This last example is my Celtic knotwork shamrock design. From left to right, colored laces, colored negative space, dotted negative space, and classic black. If you decide to get more tattoos, or you want to build a full sleeve over time, using the same style choices for all of the knotwork can make the individual pieces look like a cohesive whole. Or a central element can be rendered in a bolder way to draw the eye to the most important part of a larger whole. Thanks for watching. I hope that this video helps you to decide on a unique rendering to make your Celtic knot tattoo a custom and personalized externalization of your internal aesthetics. If so, head on over to luckyfish.com to set up an appointment. There you can also browse my portfolio, read articles, and learn about Celtic art and historical sources. If you can't make it to Santa Barbara to get a tattoo from me, you can still browse almost 2,000 of my tattoo designs available for purchase and immediate download at luckyfishart.com.